In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, and the primary topics we're going to be talking about today is the cooler air that is moving in. We discussed this yesterday, and it is going to be abnormally cold. We have an Arctic blast coming down from Canada, and I know what that sounds like. A lot of people interpret that as frigid temperatures, like actually like 30s and 40s and 20s, but really what I mean is that it is an Arctic air mass, and it is blasting down. And it is going to be pretty extreme compared to normal, but not so extreme that it's actually frigid. And I think that's the most accurate definition of an Arctic blast. So that's why you will see me use that term year round. Obviously, these Arctic invasions are much rarer during the summer because typically we don't get that sort of push from the Arctic Circle, but it could still happen, and I have seen it happen. It just is going to be much more adjusted to the summertime temperatures and compared to that average as opposed to the winter. In addition to that, this Arctic push, we know when the hot air mixes with the cooler air, that does create a lot of instability. We do have one more final phase of severe weather here before this cold, dry air does officially move in. So we're going to be discussing that multi-day severe weather outbreak that is possible. We just had terrible severe weather the last few days, very deadly, multiple major tornadoes. And unfortunately, we're not quite done with the severe weather. And hopefully it's not as bad as that even when we do see it happening, but there is a couple of days of serious concern for that severe weather. So let's dive into things. And we're taking a look at today. And there's no hiding it. Here is that Arctic air mass. Again, if we were to look at the entirety of North America, this would come from the Arctic Circle and work its way all the way through Canada and then down eventually into the United States. So again, hence the Arctic blast terminology there. I had a lot of people confused yesterday. So every time I don't break it down, people are like, there's no Arctic blast. What are you talking about? So I have to kind of break it down. I know it's annoying, but yeah. We do still see this marginally warm pattern across a lot of the south central states, deep south, southeast, and even up the mid-Atlantic coast and into southern New England. But again, this cold air will eventually shove its way in. It is going to take a little while. It's not going to be happening, today or tomorrow, but it is working its way down overall. The main feature here that is holding things back is that we do have a negative PNA still set up, so cooler temperatures along the west. We want to see this go warm, so the west to go warm. That's when this cold would fully be able to just invade. We are going to see that happen actually over time. So let's move this towards this afternoon. Sure enough, we see still, again, warmer temperatures over the south central and southeast, cooler temperatures up there near the Canadian border and also for the west. As we work our way towards Monday, we do see everything beginning to drop down. Tuesday, it's really working its way into the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley now. It's the deeper south areas that are still holding on to some warmth. And by Tuesday, look at this in the southwest. We're starting to see the beginning of a positive PNA. It's starting with this little bit of warmth. Overall, the PNA by this point is still negative because there's more cold than warm, but it is beginning to warm up. So that is a big transition date. By Wednesday, we see that getting more intense, working its way up into Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. Clearly, we're at a pretty 50-50 PNA right here, but it is pushing towards a warmer one. And this Arctic air is able to drop its way in, basically, as those temperatures warm up in the west. That's allowing for it to drop to a very, very far south area compared to what it should be able to. We see this positive PNA still expanding and working its way in, and really already we have a jet stream that looks like this. So there's fully cold temperatures by the time we're reaching Thursday the 22nd here, just about 4 days from now. As we take a look at Friday, that PNA is going fully positive. As you can see, there's a little bit of cooler temperatures along that immediate northwest coast, but really the overall west is warmer here. And we see temperatures that are 10 to 15 degrees below normal in the greens, and that's widespread throughout the east here. Unless you're along that Gulf Coast, you're basically dealing with that. And then there's even these purplish blues within there, and that's going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal. So obviously this is a very major departure from what is typical for this time of year. This is actually a quite intense Arctic blast, I guess is what I'm getting at here. Similar to what we saw in the wintertime, but again, adjusted for the averages this time of year. As we take a look at Saturday, the 24th, it's a lot of the same. Sunday, the 25th. I mean, you can't even find the cold temperatures along the west at this point, really. We're in a fully positive PNA. That is keeping the colder temperatures around. Obviously, as it sticks around, it is warming overall, so we're seeing a little bit less cold within that Arctic blast. That's why the quicker they blast in from the Arctic Circle, the more intense it is, because It doesn't have time to mix with that warm air. It's really just shoving its way in, and it kind of remains potent like it did up in Canada. When it was way up in northern Canada, it was probably normal temperatures. And the further south it comes, the more below normal it gets, because the normal is higher the further south it goes, if that makes sense. So that contrast increases if it's staying the same temperature virtually. As we keep going towards Monday, still cold in the east, warm in the west. Tuesday, the 27th, still warm in the west, cold in the east. I would say the interesting thing is that we do see cooler temperatures developing along the western seaboard. And just like the way we saw the positive PNA start, this might be the beginning of a negative PNA, which would help to rebound us back into a pattern that we should be in, like an early summer, late spring pattern. So let's see if we get that to expand at all. And it's a battle out there. We really see the positive PNA actually make a full comeback. Unfortunately, I'm hoping for warmth personally, so I'm not a fan of this upcoming pattern. But again, you can see it loses potency over time, and we actually end up by June 2nd looking a lot more close to normal, with some, 1, 2, 3 degrees above normal, a couple areas of 1, 2, 3 degrees below normal. It gets a little bit more potent as we work our way into the Northeast and Great Lakes, where we are seeing some temperatures that are, 10, maybe even 15 degrees below normal. But still, this is not as potent as when it first moved in. So as of now, we have that first blast, and it kind of just sticks around and loses potency. So it gradually increases from there, but we do not have like a follow-up blast as of now, which is good news for those of you that are hoping to rebound into at least some more typical temperatures over time. I certainly am, as I mentioned. Looking at the storminess, though, again, all of this cold air moving in on the front end is going to cause a lot of activity. So let's move towards this evening when we see some severe weather flaring up here for a lot of the southern and central plains. We have this low over eastern Colorado, and that's a lot to do with it. So pretty strong low. We do have snowfall here for a lot of the Rockies also taking place. And we have a nor'easter that is wrapping up over there in the Northeast. So there's a lot going on already just by this evening. But tomorrow evening, we see day 2 of this outbreak. And we see the severe weather maybe stretched further northward up into the upper Midwest and northern plains, all the way down through Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and probably eventually Louisiana. This is a far-stretching, very intense severe weather event that is ongoing for the next few days. By the time we're reaching Tuesday evening, what we see is this low is weakening. It's somewhere there between Iowa and Illinois. We continue to see the major severe weather, though, taking place across the Deep South, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, kind of reminiscent of some of the areas that just saw some bad severe weather, especially Kentucky, Illinois. These areas in Missouri as well have seen terrible severe weather recently, and unfortunately, they're getting this round of it. Hopefully, we don't see anything close to what we just saw. This is a good lesson here. If you guys have not heard me say this, I say it periodically, but we see the low weaken, but notice how the impacts are staying quite intense. They're actually not really missing a beat. That's why the pressure of the low does not dictate the intensity of the impacts always, right? So typically the stronger the low, aka the lower that number, the lower the low, standard would be that the more impactful the system is the stronger system, but it's not always true. And especially when we saw a stronger system and it rapidly drops off on pressure, that's not going to be an instant drop off on impacts. And we're still seeing some major severe weather for this day on Tuesday in these areas, despite that major drop off in intensity on the low. By Wednesday afternoon time, we do see some thunderstorm activity, perhaps even some severe weather from the mid-Atlantic southward through the southeast and even into the deep south here. I think at least thunderstorms will be a threat, but maybe even still some severe weather happening from an intense system like this. And then by the time we reach Thursday afternoon, we see this one becomes a nor'easter just like the one before it, where it could cause some pretty major rainfall for the mid-Atlantic and northeast, as well as some pretty windy conditions. We tell our jet stream is like this. So this is right when the cold air moves in. Here's your Arctic blast there moving in over the Great Lakes. And as we can see, we stick in a similar pattern, and I think there is opportunity for thunderstorms or even some severe weather, like right here on Saturday the 24th. But we're not really seeing anything too substantial. It's going to be pretty exclusive, just like thunderstorm events with some severe weather chance over these deeper south areas. But because of this cold, we're not really seeing much in the way of major events, at least on the models. Things can obviously change, but even as I move through the full model run, it looks like after this one that we're starting up today, it really does slow down. So that is tremendous news, obviously, and I hope that we continue to see that on the models. Of course, take it with a grain of salt. Things can change, and we might see something pop up, especially towards the later end of May and early June. This model could have some errors, obviously, some major ones, as that's beyond 10 days. But for now, it looks like good news overall after this system pushes its way through, becomes a nor'easter, and eventually moves fully out. Looking good. As we take a look at the total precipitation, we see that there's a lot happening for the plains and some of the surrounding areas. And then the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast also do pretty good. And really nowhere's doing too bad east of the Rockies. It's just these spotty areas where it's just probably a little less than normal. Florida Panhandle, upstate South Carolina, a little bit of the Ohio Valley there, and then the northern Great Lakes and upper Midwest. A couple spotty areas, and that could have some inaccuracies, but in general, the lighter browns and lighter greens are going to be very close to what's typical as far as precipitation here. We can see that area that I highlighted is mostly pretty far above normal, especially the blues are going to be, maybe even double your average. So really active in these areas. And then the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast is close to normal as well, but there is some areas that are a little bit above in there from those two nor'easters, of course. Looking at the Storm Prediction Center outlooks, here's day one today on Sunday the 18th. And already for today, we have 3 general thunderstorm risk areas in the lighter greens, and that is where we expect general thunderstorms, but anything is possible, so heed every watch, warning, and advisory. The darker green area there from the southeast through the deep south into the plains and even the Midwest, that is going to be your level 1 marginal risk, where we expect isolated severe weather to occur. And then we actually have 3 slight risk areas there, kind of odd. Smaller ones throughout the deep south just for some spotty locations, and then a bigger one there for the plains. That is where we expect scattered about severe weather to start to occur. So it becomes a little bit more widespread, but not quite fully widespread, if that makes sense. So a little bit bigger clusters of that severe weather coming in that level 2 slight risk area. Orange for the plains, that's going to be your level 3 enhanced risk. That is where we expect things to become more widespread within there. So much larger clusters and much more severe weather reports happening. And then that red area there for Kansas and a little bit of Oklahoma, that is your level 4 moderate risk, the second highest risk that they even have. That is where we expect widespread severe weather and probably bad thunderstorms happening for that entire red area for today into this evening. Now, for tomorrow, day 2, this will be for Monday the 19th. 1 large general thunderstorm risk area, 1 large marginal risk area, 1 large slight risk area, and 1 quite large enhanced risk area there for the Midwest and Plains. Again, another bad severe weather day, and this does leave room for maybe a moderate risk upgrade. I suspect that they're going to see how today goes, and if it overperforms, we'll probably get an upgrade for tomorrow. Of course, it's the same event, so if we see a day that outperforms what was expected today, or let's say it even just verifies with the moderate risk, they'll probably go ahead and usher in a moderate risk for tomorrow. If things, let's say, underperform what's expected today, that might make them want to stick at enhanced risk. Of course, there's different dynamics for each day, but when we're looking at the day after another severe weather day, that does play in, to probably the decision making over at the Storm Prediction Center, I would assume. Now, day 3 for Tuesday the 20th, it's really the same thing, just a little bit smaller with the enhanced risk, but we have a general thunderstorm risk area, a marginal, a slight, and an enhanced risk there for Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. And really, we don't have a day 4 extended day outlook, but I think it's safe to assume that some of these areas in here will see at least a general thunderstorm risk area, marginal risk, and maybe even a slight risk in there would be my assumption for Wednesday as we see that final day of that event. And then again, the cold and dry air moves in behind it, and as of now, the model guidance doesn't really show that ending very much, or very soon at least, and we'll probably get a decent little break from any of these major sweeping severe weather events for at least a little while, thankfully. With all that being said, we upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.